On September 13th, 1848, a 3-foot 7-inch iron rod shot through a man's skull at over 700 feet per second. He didn't just survive. He stood up, talked, and rode into town to see a doctor. But the man who walked away wasn't the same person who got hit. His name was Phineas Gage, a 25-year-old railroad foreman working near Cavendish, Vermont. Gage was responsible, well-liked, and described as the most efficient and capable foreman on his crew. His team was clearing rock for a new railroad. Workers would drill holes, add blasting powder and sand, then compress everything using a long tamping iron. What happened next would rewrite what we knew about the human brain. Before sand had been added to cover the powder, Gage began packing the hole. The iron struck the rock and created a spark. The powder exploded. The 13-pound rod entered through Gage's left cheek, passed behind his eye, tore through his frontal lobe, and exited through the top of his skull. It landed roughly 80 feet away, reportedly covered in blood and brain tissue. Here's the part that still makes doctors' jaws drop. Gage remained conscious. Within minutes, he was speaking. He rode into town in an ox cart, where Dr. John Harlow found him sitting upright on a porch, talking and joking with onlookers. Harlow examined the enormous wound and removed fragments of bone and other material. Gage survived the initial trauma, but soon developed a serious infection. For a time, it still appeared that he might die. After weeks of treatment, however, his condition improved. His wounds healed, he regained his strength, and he was eventually able to live independently again. But everyone who knew him said the same unsettling thing. Gage was no longer Gage. If stories where one moment completely rewrites science are your thing, this channel does one every week. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. Before the accident, Gage was calm, dependable, and capable of managing an entire railroad crew. Afterward, people described him as impulsive, impatient, crude, and unpredictable. He made plans and abandoned them almost immediately. His employers no longer believed he could handle his old position. The injury had not destroyed his intelligence or ability to speak and move. Instead, it appeared to change his judgment, emotional control, decision-making, and personality. The rod had damaged his frontal lobe, an area we now associate with executive function, impulse control, emotional regulation, and understanding the consequences of our actions. Today, the idea that different brain regions perform different jobs seems obvious. But in 1848, many doctors still believed the brain worked as one largely undivided organ. Gage's case provided dramatic evidence that damage to one part of the brain could alter specific parts of a person's behavior and personality. His story became foundational to modern neuroscience and is still taught in psychology courses today. His skull and tamping iron are preserved at Harvard's Warren Anatomical Museum. But there is another side to the story. Modern historians believe Gage may have recovered much more than popular retellings suggest. He eventually moved to Chile and worked for years as a stagecoach driver, a skilled job requiring planning, memory, responsibility, and constant interaction with passengers. That suggests Gage may have regained many of the abilities he appeared to lose. His story may therefore demonstrate not only the importance of the frontal lobe, but also neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt after a serious injury. The accident nearly killed him, changed who he was, and gave medicine powerful evidence that different parts of the brain perform different functions. Every discussion about frontal lobe damage and personality change traces partly back to one railroad worker and one terrible accident in Vermont. For more true stories where science was rewritten by accident, subscribe and tell me which case study you want covered next.